I'm Mark Abrams. This is number 0850. Write that down, number 0850, or don't write it down, but nevertheless the number is 0850 of the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. And it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there! Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File program, number 0850. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File program, you'll meet Sheetal Puri, who is the Senior Director of Digital Fundraising at Wikimedia Foundation, the people who bring us Wikipedia.
Wikipedia was really kind of this amazing, remarkable dream, and that it's landed and it's become as big and as global and really just as important as it is kind of an amazing accomplishment. It is the backbone of a lot of knowledge on the internet, and when we think about knowledge now, I think what makes Wikipedia stand apart is that the knowledge on Wikipedia is very human. It is humans writing the knowledge, it is humans debating whether an article should say one thing or another. And that's really unique in our world today.
Dog trainer Kathleen Troy is back on the show with tips on how to deal with your pets during the holidays.
Have a nice, quiet place for your pet in your house. If you've had the opportunity to crate train your dog in the past, this is perfect because you can leave the door to the crate open when things get a little too noisy. There's a lot of people in the room, maybe families and children, and there's a lot of bright objects such as gifts and things like that. A pet can be overwhelmed, so your dog might want to just go to its quiet place, such as this crate, and have a little lie down. That's always very nice.
Bill Williams is back on the show with the second volume of his book series, 20 Years of Internet Humor and Other Interesting Things. While Bill does share the funny, he hasn't exactly had jobs that were a chuckle fest.
I managed a 4-city television network from Austin, Texas back in the 60s. Put a new TV station on the air here in Ohio, which is how I got up to this place. And then I went to Washington, D.C. as a communications consultant in my own company for 20 years. I worked with all the different government agencies. I worked with the Reagan and Carter's White House. I was the first director of news and information for FEMA when it was first created. And then I got tired of all that sort of stuff and changed things around and moved back to Ohio since I started raising a family and became a financial advisor.
And there's lots and lots of Stuff File news, dad joke theater, morning shower thoughts, and of course, an idiot of the day. The guest later, the person who told you this was show number 0850, was Mark Abrams, the editor of the Annals of Improbable Research and the people who put out the Ig Nobel Awards. He was back on show number 0845 talking about the awards, so you can go back and listen to that show if you haven't already heard it. Thank you very much, Mark, for doing the guest slate on this edition of the Stuff File program, a show that is listener-supported, fan-funded radio that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Well, let's get right to the stuff. A 57-year-old unemployed former nurse in northern Italy was arrested for allegedly dressing up as his deceased mother to renew her identity card and continue collecting her pension. The man's mother, Graziella Del Oglio, died in 2022 at the age of 82, but he never reported her death to authorities. When her identity card expired, he wore makeup, a wig, and her clothing to pose as his mother at the municipal office. A processing agent became suspicious after noticing dark hair on the woman's neck, hands, and chin, then contacted police. Officers discovered surveillance footage showing the man drove to the office despite his mother having no driver's license. Police found Dal Aglio's mummified remains wrapped in sleeping bags in a laundry room closet. The man faces charges including concealing a corpse, which in North America is known as
Abuse of corpse.
plus fraud, impersonation, and document forgery. This sounds like a very dark version of Mrs. Doubtfire.
How about you, Mrs. Doubtfire?
Oh, you wicked, wicked man. Isn't there enough flesh here for you to feast your eyes on?
A Delta flight to Salt Lake City was delayed on the evening of November 13th at Portland International Airport after crew members discovered a passenger had carried a meat cleaver through security screening. Staff reported the hazardous item to TSA officials after finding it aboard the aircraft. All passengers were ordered off the plane and required to go through security screening a second time. No arrests were made in connection with the security breach. A TSA spokesperson said, "We take this matter very seriously. We are reviewing the incident, and once we determine the circumstances surrounding this event, we will take appropriate corrective action that could include additional training of the security screening workforce." Is it a coincidence that the U.S. government shutdown also ended on November 13th? Meanwhile, that doesn't mean that all of the people working without pay have received back pay checks yet. I'm just saying. Yeah. And finally, on this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, with me, Peter Anthony Holder, a deer smashed through a cafeteria window at Amherst Junior High School in Ohio at 7:20 a.m. while staff prepared breakfast for students. Video footage shows two deer running across sidewalks when one charged directly at windows near the school's bus loop and bicycle racks. The animal crashed into a cafeteria table and struggled on tile floors as people ran from its path. Principal Andrew Hoffman said staff and Amherst Police Department officers contained the deer by guiding it onto the stage before leading it out the back door. Said Hoffman, "As shocking as the event was to witness, we are happy to report that no significant injuries took place, although a couple of students and staff members were present in the cafeteria when the deer came through the window." Classes continued normally, with breakfast served during first period after the incident. I'm assuming that those were wild deer and not owned animals from a petting zoo. But if they were from a petting zoo, what would the owners say in a quote to their missing venison?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Well, that seems kind of harsh. Anyway, let's get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Millions of computer users use Wikipedia, a free content online encyclopedia written and maintained by a community of volunteers known as Wikipedians. It's been around now for almost a quarter of a century, starting in January of 2001. People use it regularly without even thinking about it. It's just there. While it's free to use, it's not inexpensive to maintain. That's why, if you use it, you've probably noticed that it is in the annual fundraising drive. Sheetal Puri is the Senior Director of Digital Fundraising at the Wikimedia Foundation. She joins us from Toronto via Riverside.com. Hi, Sheetal.
Hi, Peter. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being on the program with us. Now, I am somebody who uses Wikipedia a lot, and I think it's something that many people in the media at least initially go to. So I have actually addressed the situation by donating every year when it pops up. But am I right in saying that a lot of people go to it and not really think about it?
That's right, Peter. Well, firstly, thanks so much for being a donor of Wikipedia. And you're right, only about 2% of readers actually go ahead and donate to the site. But that small number of readers has always been enough to sustain this amazing global project that over 15 billion, we have over 15 billion page views a month accessing Wikipedia.
That is a lot. When this company first started, did it anticipate that it would be as global as it is?
Well, as we kind of head into our kind of 25th anniversary, I think we're reflecting a lot that Wikipedia was really kind of this amazing, remarkable dream, and that it's landed and it's become as big and as global and really just as important as it is kind of an amazing accomplishment. It is the backbone of a lot of knowledge on the internet. And when we think about knowledge now, I think what makes Wikipedia stand apart is that the knowledge on Wikipedia is very human. It is humans writing the knowledge. It is humans debating whether an article should say one thing or another. And that's really unique in our world today.
Well, bringing up that fact, how do you go about fact checking since so many people are involved in collectively writing Wikipedia? How does one fact check it?
There are certain principles that guide content creation that the volunteers who write on Wikipedia strive to adhere to. And there is a huge and robust and thriving community of volunteers who kind of check each other. And if you go to any Wikipedia article, I think an average reader might not know this, but you can actually go behind the scenes, look at an article, look at the edit history, look at the debates between volunteers who are editing the content and really understand why it is the page is saying what it is at that given moment. And I think, again, that's a really unique aspect of the site. And it means that, as knowledge kind of evolves with time, the pages are evolving too. And that's what keeps the information on Wikipedia really up to date and really, really accurate.
Well, besides growing by leaps and bounds over the last 25 years, how has Wikipedia changed? How has it morphed over the years?
I think the projects have just got bigger. So if you think about your usage, Peter, I'm not sure, maybe you speak English and French. I use English Wikipedia primarily, but there are Wikipedias in many different languages around the world. So you are able to read in sometimes very small languages where the internet as a whole might not contain much information for you in that language, but Wikipedia is there preserving knowledge in those languages. And the knowledge has just got more robust. Wikipedia is increasingly a place where people turn to for that reliable information. And I think people are becoming more savvy, particularly with the use of AI and other tools where you can gather knowledge, that actually checking things and looking at sources, looking at citations is really important. And Wikipedia has always had those. I think one thing that's changed is that people have come historically to the site, and now you might be reading Wikipedia content and not even really realize that you're doing that. Sites like ChatGPT will scrape content on Wikipedia to help train their models to get better answers for their user base. And so really, even off-platform, not on Wikipedia, you are accessing the rich diversity of content and all of the debates and editing that has gone into lots of those articles.
Getting back to fact checking, how does one go about doing that if, as a particular, just a reader, just a user, if you see something that is not quite factual? And by the way, I'm not saying that I see that often. I rarely do. But how does one correct that?
And you might see that. You might also see, probably more common, is something missing. For example, you know something, or you might have access to an image for an article, for example. And a beautiful thing about Wikipedia is that literally anybody can edit Wikipedia. You can go ahead and on the top right-hand corner of the website, create an account for yourself. You might need to learn a little bit to get going with editing, but anyone is able to submit an edit or suggest a change on an article. And then those go through, again, that kind of robust, thriving group of volunteers to determine whether that is a edit worth making on the site.
And on the other side of the coin, I mean, it's a very altruistic idea, and millions of people use it daily for the greater good. But there are some nefarious people out there. How do you stop them?
Well, vandalism is something that happens on the site. And one of the things that I do, working for the Wikimedia Foundation, which is the nonprofit that supports Wikipedia, is we raise money for the foundation, and our staff build technology. They build tools that help catch vandalism faster and be able to revert an edit that is nefarious at a faster time. So there's a chance you might come to Wikipedia and see something that isn't quite right and is nefarious. But generally speaking, those kinds of edits are reverted very quickly due to the extensive vandalism tools that we have in place.
I came to this, as I said, because of the fundraising campaign. So let's talk a little bit about that. What are you looking for, and what dollar figure are you asking for and anticipating to make Wikipedia thrive and continue?
That's a great question, Peter. And as I said, Wikipedia is supported by about 2% of our readers. And those 2% of readers who give serve a really critical function. Without donations, without funding, the work that the foundation does to support the technology behind Wikipedia, to support the volunteer communities wouldn't be possible. We actually have an amazing grassroots funding model for Wikipedia. So the vast majority of revenue that we receive is through small donations. Last year, we received about 8 million donations globally of about $11 US on average. So lots of people making, what might be kind of considered smaller gifts in the charitable world, but coming together to be enough to support the site, to have no paywall, no ads running, and accessible for all freely. For the last 25 years. So when we run our fundraiser, our messages are only up for a short period of the year. They'll be up during the month of December. And we look to this really critical moment for us to turn to our readers and say, hey, we think you love this project. We know this project is important in sustaining an open and thriving internet. So could you give something back? And we're very open. We get very large gifts, and we also get lots and lots of small gifts, and all of those help sustain us. I will say that the most impactful types of gifts for us are monthly donations. They just allow us to forecast into the future and have a reliable, sustainable pool of revenue. And we have many monthly donors around the world who really kind of help us keep going.
I know that in the ask that you have online right now, I mean, you're asking the minimum of just $2.75.
That's right. That's right. And we want to keep the project to be open and accessible to all. So I think if you arrived on the site and we were asking for a large sum of money, you might not feel like this is a place for you or an invitation for you. But what I think makes Wikipedia so beautiful is it is so open to everyone. It is so accessible to everyone. So we want everyone to feel like they can give back, whether you are a student or on a fixed income as a pensioner or some other version of a person in the world. And, I will just say 2025 has been a year. So any amount of a gift is important to us. We famously used to compare ourselves, a gift to the Wikipedia as a price of a cup of coffee, but the price of coffee went up very substantially. So we no longer do that. But we start at $2.75 and any gift is appreciated.
The one thing that I found when I look at Wikipedia and when I look at the donation drive is actually an appreciation because, as I said in the introduction, people use it regularly without even thinking about it. And the fact that you're having that fundraising makes me realize this is valuable, and sometimes we all take it for granted.
That's really true. And when we talk to donors and we ask them why they give to Wikipedia, a lot of them say they give because they themselves derive a lot of utility from it. It is a very useful thing in their lives. And I think, Peter, that's what you described for yourself. And this is our top number one reason why people give back to Wikipedia. But increasingly, we're also hearing donors say they give to Wikipedia because they think it's important. It's important to have this thing that is not driven by commercial interest, that does not have a particular political perspective that is neutral in the world or strives for neutrality. And I think that is a kind of beautiful invitation into being part of, creating the world that you want.
Sheetal, thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on the program with us, and continued success with all that you do within Wikipedia and what Wikipedia does.
Thank you, Peter. And once again, thank you for being a supporter.
Sheetal Puri, the Senior Director of Digital Fundraising at the Wikimedia Foundation. The Wikipedia fundraising campaign is currently going on. You can visit wikimedia.org. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
And now, Dad Joke Theater.
How do you keep a bagel from getting away? Put locks on it.
Join us again for another Stuff File program, Dad Joke Theater.
There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like, but the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/thestufffileprogram. program.
I'm standing with my reindeer. For Canada! Ho, ho, ho! Yes, it's me, Santa Claus. I travel everywhere, but I choose to live in the Canadian part of the North Pole. Canada's a most precious place. So, buy Canadian. Shop as if your country depends on it. Keep your money in Canada. For Canada. Ho, 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 ho.
You're experiencing the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. Sit back, relax, let it rattle around between your ears, tickling your cerebellum, and enjoy.
And still to come on the program, dog trainer Kathleen Troy is on to talk about dogs and the holidays. Plus, Bill Williams is also back on the show. He's the author of 20 Years of Internet Humor, and he's back to talk about his second volume that is now coming out. We also have a morning shower thought, an idiot of the day, and lots more in Stuff File news right here, right now. Cole Bertels faces burglary charges after kicking in the glass door of a Circle K store in St. Charles, Missouri, then consuming beef jerky and sweet tea without payment.
At Circle K, America's Thirst Stop.
Police found Bertels inside the locked convenience store. Bertels confessed to the break-in, telling officers, "The voices in my head told me to kick it open since it was locked," and claimed he just wanted to use the bathroom. He also made claims about an artificial intelligence implant, though its role in the alleged crime appears unclear. Bertels walked to the Missouri store from Illinois, approximately 40 miles from his residence. He was charged with felony burglary, second-degree misdemeanor property damage, and theft of property valued under $150. Bertels is held on $2,500 cash bond and must avoid Circle K contact.
Circle K makes your day.
He must also submit to mental health evaluation if released. In other words, a checkup from the neck up. But what's going to happen to him if he has to avoid Circle K, especially during the holidays? I mean, it's right there in their jingle. People rely on Circle K.
People we rely on this holiday are fueled by Circle K every single day. Fueled by Circle K.
Okay, here's another story this week that's just too weird for words. Federal prosecutors have indicted 2 North Texas men for plotting an armed takeover of Haiti's Gonave Island. 21-year-old Gavin Weisenberg and 20-year-old Tanner Thomas allegedly planned to murder all men on the island and enslave women and children as sex slaves. The Justice Department says the conspiracy began in August of 2024, with both men taking Haitian Creole lessons and researching weapons. Thomas enlisted in the U.S. Air Force in January to gain military training for the coup, while Weisenberg enrolled in Fire Academy training. They plan to recruit homeless people from Washington, D.C., and transport weapons by sailboat. Both face conspiracy charges that could bring life sentences, plus child pornography charges carrying up to 30 years. Gonave Island, located 30 miles northwest of Port-au-Prince, has about 87,000 residents. You know, if this were a film script, it would be laughed out of any producer's office. Grandma, a Galapagos tortoise and the San Diego Zoo's oldest animal, died November 20th at the estimated age of 141 years old. Zoo officials humanely euthanized the reptile due to ongoing bone conditions related to advanced age that had recently worsened. Known as the Queen of the Zoo, Grandma arrived between 1928 and 1931 as part of the first group of Galapagos tortoises at the facility. During her nearly century-long residence, she witnessed more than 20 U.S. presidents, 2 world wars, and 2 pandemics while serving as an ambassador for reptile conservation. Okay, did she really witness those things? I mean, was she listening to radio and or television during the time that she was alive? Or was she just oblivious of all those things going on? Anyway, zoo caretakers said Grandma particularly loved romaine lettuce and cactus fruit. The zoo encouraged visitors to honor her memory by enjoying a generous fruit-filled salad. Ugh, that's not food. That's what food eats. Galapagos tortoises typically live over 100 years, with 12 to 15 subspecies currently vulnerable or critically endangered. At press time, we don't have the answer, but what I want to know is, now that she's gone, is she going to be buried or stuffed?
My hobby is stuffing things. You know, taxidermy.
Strange hobby. Curious.
Uncommon, too.
Oh, I imagine so.
And it's not as expensive as you'd think. It's cheap, really. You know, needles, thread, sawdust. The chemicals are the only thing that cost anything.
A man should have a hobby.
It's more than a hobby. A hobby's supposed to pass the time, not fill it.
Is your time so empty?
I wonder whatever happened to that couple. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our next guest here on this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, I spent 20 years doing a live call-in show on radio, so I've heard just about everything that callers can dish out, but this one really takes the cake. In Maryland, Frederick police confirmed they found human remains in a wooded area after a radio caller reported discovering a body. The caller, identifying himself as Joseph, phoned DC 101's Elliot in the Morning show on November 21st, saying he found decomposed remains at a Maryland campsite 18 days earlier.
Dude, you found a dead body?
Yes. This may sound sick, but I've always wanted to come upon something like that.
Yes.
And luckily, it was months old, so that was nice.
This might sound sick? No. Pal, look behind you with binoculars. You passed sick a long time ago. I mean, this guy gives Norman Bates a run for his money. Anyway, host Elliot Siegel urged the caller to contact authorities.
Tell me you called the police.
Probably today. I had a dream last night that I called them. So, yeah, no, not yet.
Dude, call the cops.
Officers located the remains near a roundabout in an advanced state of decomposition. Police said positive identification is underway, and there is no indication of foul play in this death. No arrests have been made in connection with the discovery. Really? Have you at least checked the caller's basement? Ugh. Anyway, let's get to our next guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Kathleen Troy is back on the show. She is a dog trainer and the author of Dear Dylan's Dog Squad, as well as a series of YA detective mysteries. This time, she's here to talk about the do's and don'ts of the holiday season when it comes to your pets. Kathleen joins us from California via riverside.com. Hi, Kathleen.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you.
Nice to have you back on the program again. And I'll just say right off the bat, happy holidays to you and yours.
Oh, you too.
I want to start off with, in the United States, you just finished the Thanksgiving, but now we're into the holiday season with Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa and all the like. It must be overload for a pet, especially one that is young, like a puppy. So what are the do's and don'ts when it comes to dogs, especially, as I said, the younger ones?
You know, you're right. There's so much things that we take for excitement and wonderfulness and something to look forward to them. And for them, it's just something so new. And it's almost an onslaught of activity and scents and things like that. So, keep in mind during the holidays, you're going to have more people over in your home. And for that, you want to be on dog door patrol or cat door patrol too. Our little friends can be very quick when the door opens and out they go. Um, a lot of visitors don't realize that when they come in, they should shut the door behind them. So that's always good to remember. And some of the other things is to have a nice, quiet place for your pet in your house. If you've had the opportunity to, let's say, crate train your dog in the past, this is perfect because you can leave the door to the crate open when things get a little too noisy. There's a lot of people in the room, maybe families and children, and there's a lot of bright objects such as gifts and things like that. A pet can be overwhelmed, so your dog might want to just go to its quiet place, such as its crate, and have a little lie down. That's always very nice. So the other things too is there's going to be a lot of scents in the air. So some people go wild with, let's say, artificial fragrances for trees, because we have gone to a lot of artificial type trees. And while that may be very exciting for us and remind us of Dickens' holidays and things like that, for a dog that has 50 million receptors in its nose, it's horrible. It's horrible having those smells. And then you add on it the cooking smells, such as turkey and sweet potatoes and, those pumpkin pies and chocolate desserts and things like that. It's like a war of senses to your poor little pet.
Not to forget Uncle Ed's aftershave, which he might have on.
Oh, yes, in abundance.
Yeah. I want to get back to the crate training because even though you have crate trained your dog, it could be a matter of where your crate is located, because when you are having the normal household situation and you have your crate for your dog and the dog can go in it whenever it wants to, especially if the door is open, do you have to retrain your dog if you have to move your crate to some other quiet place of the house because that particular part of the house is going to be loud and boisterous?
Yes, your dog is not going to know that you moved it. He's just going to want to know, where's my crate? So, what I always did was I always had a crate in my bedroom and I'd leave the door open, but I would also have the larger, comfy dog mats, and that can work as well. Something that is posturepedic, so it's good for their bones and, spine and things like that. And I would have one in a couple of different places around the house. So it's very easy for them to locate. And if you're going to have company over, you could pick up one or two, but you could have another one maybe off in the study or off in the TV room or in an area that's not going to be frequented by your guests. So your dog would know, I don't find it here, but I can find it over here and go there.
Now, again, I'm thinking of puppies. Uh, you bring in a tree, and you know what dogs do to trees.
Well, yes, that's their job.
Yeah, you put gifts underneath them, and you know what dogs do to gifts. So, how do you get around that situation?
Well, good luck is the first bit of advice. Um, when you're not going to be in that area, and especially if you have a young puppy or you have a mischievous puppy, I would suggest the old-fashioned dog gates, and those work very well because, again, to you, this is a wonderful, beautiful vision, your tree, the gifts, everything Christmas and happy and bright colors and so forth. And to a dog, it's like, oh, wow, a new toy. This is really great. Let's go investigate. And of course, they're going to drag it out and want to play with it and paw at the ribbon and probably chew on it and probably ingest it. And then you're probably going to be at the vets and things like that. So you might want to do that. Just employ the gate. Those work very, very well if you're not going to be in that room.
With the decorations comes things like extension cords.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to be concerned about that as well?
Oh, yes, those are just perfect. They fit right between the jaws, and we can nibble on them happily, and we can probably get, shocked. So that isn't good. It's not a good thing. Uh, unplug them. Maybe just put them inside your tree, higher up, that sort of thing. Other types of things that go with it, you're talking about decorations. Those are of concern too.
You just got through Thanksgiving, so you're probably fresh with ideas about uh, dining situations. I mean, again, we'll bring up Uncle Ed. He might be willing to pass the dog a few things off his plate, especially if it's things that he doesn't like. But he shouldn't do that, should he?
No, I always hear people say, well, the dog likes it, or he wanted it, or he said, and I'm really, he said? First of all, dogs want anything that's edible and anything that can go into their mouth. So you need to be the adult, you need to be the wiser one. And for example, people always say, well, turkey is good for a dog. And I know that because I see dog food that is made with turkey. So obviously, I can give the dog turkey. Well, maybe, and not too much. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about the meat itself and only in tiny, tiny, tiny quantities. Never the skin part of it. Never give your dog turkey that is attached to the bone or the bones itself because they can splinter. And so you don't want that. But you want to really keep things minimal. And back to good old Uncle Ed, think about if you have 8 people around the dining room table, your dog is not going to stop just with Uncle Ed. He's going to make the rounds. And so by the time he comes around to Uncle Ed again, he's probably had, 7 or 8 helpings of something. So all those little helpings add up to probably a very bad tummy ache, probably digestive problems, and probably a trip to the vet.
I want to reiterate something you just said because you mentioned giving a dog a bone, and that's an old term, giving a dog a bone. But the bones that you get from your turkey aren't the kind of bones that dogs should be eating.
Mm-mm. No, they're not. Turkey bones, chicken bones, they're not good. They can just splinter. And even other type of bones, they're really not good for your dog, Peter. The reason is because dogs' teeth are deciduous. They don't have the roots. that we do. And so they love chewing on a bone. It feels really, really good. But they can lose a tooth very easily, and you don't want that.
And something you also said earlier is when you open the door, make sure the door is closed because a pet can just run right out, especially if a door is open too long. And that brings up an interesting point. If you haven't done so already, get your pet microchipped.
Yes, absolutely. I really believe in that. All vets are able to read a microchip. And there are other useful things too. Apple has the AirTag that you can attach to the collar. It's very effective. And I think the cost is minimal. And I know people say sometimes, well, about the cost, let's address that. They'll say, well, gosh, $100 for this or $200 for that or whatever. And I think, you know what? You try spending a day looking for your pet and then a sleepless night worrying what happened to your pet. And isn't your pet worth $200 or whatever that item is? And going back to the microchip, they're very, very affordable. I'm not sure what the cost would be in your area, but here, they're very affordable. The Apple ID tags, not to plug, vendors, but Amazon, Costco, other big companies, Walmart, things like that, they're all available. And they usually come in a 4-pack. And they're the same ID tags that you can put on your luggage, you can put on your purse, you can put on your car keys, your car fob, things like that. It's easily attached to the collar. And I recommend them wholeheartedly.
Great tips all the way around, as always. Thank you very, very much, Kathleen, for taking the time to be on the program with us. And as I said earlier, the happiest of holidays and New Year to you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Peter. And I hope you enjoy your time of merriment as well.
Kathleen Troy, author of Dear Dylan's Dog Squad. She's also the author of the YA detective mysteries entitled Never Believe a Lie Twice and Never Believe a Con Artist Twice. You can go to our website at thestufffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0850, and you'll find the link to Kathleen's site, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order her books directly. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder.
Giving you something to think about. This is Morning Shower Thoughts.
Just think of the first person who tried ice skating. Someone was brave enough to walk onto a frozen lake and be like, you know what my feet needs? Knives.
Morning Shower Thoughts from the Stuff File program.
Got something for the mailbag? Drop Peter a line. He'd love to hear from you. Send your email to mailbag@thestufffile.com. And remember, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's mailbag@thestufffile.com. Or catch up with him on Twitter or Facebook. There's more Stuff File coming your way in just a few moments.
Here's a brief word about our show and my book. If you become a regular Patreon patron of the Stuff File program, I'll give you an e-version of my book, Great Conversations, my interviews with 2 men on the moon and a galaxy of stars. It's easy to do. Just go to patreon.com and become a patron to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. So, join Patreon and claim your copy of Great Conversations, my interviews with 2 men on the moon and a galaxy of stars. Sign up at patreon.com/the Stuff File program.
This is your safe haven from the hard news of the day. The Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder. It's radio for your happy place.
And we're just about into the home stretch here on this edition of the Stuff File program. As a matter of fact, we do indeed have an idiot of the day coming your way, but we have no more time for Stuff File news in this segment of the program. We're just going to get right to our last guest right here, right now. We had Bill Williams on the show back in April. He's the author of 20 Years of Internet Humor and Other Interesting Things. Well, his second volume is coming out, so we thought we'd have Bill back on the show. He joins us from Ohio via Riverside.com. Hi, Bill. Nice to talk to you again.
Hi, Peter. It's good to hear from you as well. Welcome, or I guess thanks for the welcome.
Absolutely. Now, as I said, Volume 2 is now coming out. How many volumes will you be putting out, and how often?
Well, I'm looking forward to having about 6 out next year, and one every 2 months. And I've got about 1,200 things to put into them, so I'm not short of the material.
What's in volume 2 as opposed to what has been in volume 1?
Nothing new. There's some laughs, some other interesting things, some historical stuff, some pictures, a little bit of everything, something to make everybody say, hey, that's sort of neat.
The last time we had you on the program, I mentioned the fact that I love the subtitle and other interesting things. So what are some of the interesting things that you can pinpoint or highlight from this volume 2?
Well, that's a very good question. I've got a bunch of memes from all over the place. I've got one that you've already seen, which was 10 myths about Thanksgiving.
Ah, yes.
And which, by the way, adds a comment about Canada. So it's just more of the same. Interesting things, nice stories, jokes, something everybody can share with somebody else. I don't think I've got anything in it that would make anybody mad, but one never knows.
Yeah, in this day and age, people get mad for the slightest of situations. In any case, as again, we had you on back in April, back on show number 0817. People can go and listen to that and catch up to what we're talking about now. But you started this all out with an email blast to your to fellow employees back in the day, and it just became a bigger and bigger thing as time went on. And I guess that you haven't really stopped that, because I get your email, your newsletter, and you're still kind of doing that, aren't you?
I'm still kind of doing that, and I started back in the mid-90s. So actually, I've been doing it for 30 years, but back in the 90s, I never even gave a thought to storing this stuff and saving a copy. So my earliest stuff right now goes back to 2005.
Now, when you look back at what you have done over the years, do you get a kind of a glow on? Because, sometimes if you're counting your footsteps and you're going on a long journey, you don't necessarily spend the time looking at what you've done until you turn around and you go, oh, my gosh, I've gone a great distance since then. So have you had that analogy to you with all that you've done over the years?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have. It was actually about 4 years ago. I looked at all this stuff and said, gee whiz, maybe this would make a good book. And I started looking for an agent and discovered that that's not how you publish books anymore unless you already have a whole ton of books out there. And a friend of mine who had published a couple of books said, no, now it's all, for the most part, self-publishing unless you've already got 100,000 readers. Which I obviously did not. And so I published the first book and learned a lot. I've been writing since 1963, I guess, when I was working for a daily paper. But this was the first book I've published.
Now, how successful was the first one?
Well, all the reviews have been 5 stars. I haven't had any of them that weren't. So I guess people liked it.
Even before you started sending jokes out in emails back in the day, were you always a guy telling jokes?
Everybody asks me that, and the answer is no. Well, I could tell a joke at a party or something like that, but I was not a comedian. I didn't do stand-up, although I did work with a couple of comedians as, producer and publicist, that sort of thing. But no, I was never a comic. I just happened to fall into this.
Even though you weren't a comic, it's still, you can still have a funny bone. I mean, everyone knows someone in their circle, in their family, who is quote unquote funny, even though they're not a comedian. Were you that person?
Occasionally, not on a regular basis, but I like I say, I've done a lot of writing, and I tried to include some humor in most of the screenplays and things that I did. So the clients all liked it. So, if I found that, if somebody is laughing or smiling, they're far more willing to accept the idea that you're trying to get across to them.
Okay, well, let me ask the question in a different way, and that is, with all that you've done over the years, first with the emails, now with the newsletter, and certainly with the books, would people in your family, or are people in your family, surprised at what you have done through the years, given what, a younger Bill was like back in the day?
No, I wouldn't say they were surprised, because as far as I'm concerned, and I think as far as my family and friends are concerned, this is just one more step on the road that I've been traveling. Hey, I've had a bunch of different careers over the years, and this is just the most recent and, frankly, the most fun.
What were the different careers that you have had over the years?
Well, I've been in radio and television. I managed a 4-city television network from Austin, Texas back in the 60s. I put a new TV station on the air here in Ohio, which is how I got up to this place. And then I went to Washington, D.C. as a communications consultant in my own company for 20 years. I worked with all the different government agencies. I worked with the Reagan and Carter's White House. I was the first director of news and information for FEMA when it was first created. And then I got tired of all that sort of stuff and changed things around and moved back to Ohio since I started raising a family, and became a financial advisor. And those are the people that I started sending the emails out to, the sales staff on my company.
Okay, so, in going through your resume, I mean, you started radio and television stations, you helmed radio and television stations. Now, I have worked in both radio and TV, and, not to point fingers, but the bosses were never a lot of laughs. Then you went to Washington, and that is not exactly a yuck fest. So you must have stuck out like a sore thumb, an enjoyable thumb, to all the people you met, because, as I said, you are a funny guy, but you haven't necessarily had funny jobs.
No, I haven't had funny jobs, and some of them have been very, very serious, like when I was with FEMA. And frankly, that was one of the most enjoyable jobs I ever had. I would be doing that today if it weren't for politics, which obviously is why anytime you're in government, it's always politics. So I was in the wrong political party at the time, and they said bye-bye. And that was disappointing, but hey, I haven't regretted being there, and I haven't regretted what I've done since. I just enjoy whatever I'm doing.
Now, the last time we spoke, and again, that was on show number 0817, I brought up the point that what you're doing is similar to Chicken Soup for the Soul, and you mentioned the fact that the creator of that enterprise had actually reached out to you. What's the situation with that?
Well, Jack Canfield, actually, I had an opportunity to go on a seminar with Jack Canfield, which taught me a lot of what I needed to know about publishing this first book. And Jack got a copy of my preprint copy of my first book, and he loved it and wrote a nice review for it and gave me a video conference review saying, what a great book it was.
So you are planning, as you said, to put out books probably every 4 months?
Every 2 months.
Every 2 months? Wow. And as I mentioned, I'm on your newsletter. How can one get on the newsletter if they're looking for it?
They can, easiest way to do it, send me an email. It's bill@internet-humor.com. You have to have a hyphen between internet and humor. Or go to my website, www.internet-humor.com.
And besides the opportunity to sign up for the newsletter, what will people find when they go to your website?
Well, they find a lot of information about my background and some neat pictures, and they see a bunch of reviews about the thing, and then a bunch of the podcasts that I've been on, and your file is right at the very top of that list.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you, Bill, for being on the program with us once again. It's a pleasure to have you on. And best of the holiday season now that we're right into the smack of it right now. You just had your Thanksgiving and, Christmas is coming up. So best of the holiday season to you, sir.
Same to you, my friend. Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you.
Bill Williams, author of 20 Years of Internet Humor and Other Interesting Things. You can go to our website at thestuffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0850, and you'll find the link to Bill's website, where you can also sign up to his weekly newsletter, plus links to either Amazon.com or Amazon.ca, where you can order his book directly. And don't forget that you can listen to Bill on the previous show from April. That was number 0817. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder. And now, boys and girls, it's that moment you've all been waiting for. It's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the strange things adults do. This Stuff File presents the Idiot of the Day.
A West Virginia man was rushed to East Liverpool Hospital after being wounded while struggling over a gun with another man as they were shooting rats from a second-story window. The Hancock County Sheriff's Office reported that on November 19th at around 1 a.m., they received a call about a man who was shot. The initial report suggested the person was injured in a gun-cleaning accident. When deputies arrived, they found 2 men and a woman in the residence. The victim, holding a blood-soaked towel to his head, was standing at the top of the stairs with the woman and the other man. EMTs treated the man for what appeared to be a gunshot wound to the head. He was taken to hospital and subsequently transferred to UPMC in Pittsburgh. He was in stable condition when transferred. Deputies questioned the other man and woman and determined the incident was not a gun-cleaning accident. Instead, they found that the 2 men were shooting rats outside a second-story window using a small-caliber rifle. The shooting occurred when the men were struggling to get the rifle from each other, causing it to discharge and striking the victim in the head. 58-year-old Mark Reese Fuller, the owner of the house, was arrested and charged with 1 count of wanton endangerment with a firearm and 1 count of shooting within 500 feet of a dwelling. Now, why, oh why, would you be struggling with a pal over a rifle so that you could shoot rats from a second-story window in the middle of the night? One reason, and one reason only. Both of you are idiots!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program, number 0850. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestuffile.com. And once again, Stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links in all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number, and once again, that's 0850. Email me at peter@thestuffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Spoutable, Mastodon, and Blue Sky as PA Holder. Check us out on patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including KDXRadio.com, over the air on World FM in New Zealand, WNRHLP-FM in Newport Richey, Florida, KZZHLP-FM in Eureka, California, CKUW-FM in Winnipeg, CFMU in Hamilton, CKLU in Sudbury, Local 107.3 FM in St. John, CHSR in Fredericton, and also streaming on just about any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. Always remember that an apple a day keeps the doctor away. And with a bushel of apples, you could have a hell of a time with the doctor's spouse.